Over the past few weeks, we've added a lot of new models to our hosted product. There have been a lot of evolutions in the AI image creation scene over the past 2 to 3 years. What we're going to do today is we're going to try to break down the different models. We're going to try to show how the different models work. We'll kind of go through the progression of different models and kind of talk through where we are today and how to use some of the more emerging kind of tools that exist in Imagen 4 and also the ChatGPT-4o model. I've got all the models that I'm going to highlight today listed here. We've got everything from the older generation Stable Diffusion and SDXL to Flux and some of the external APIs that are now plugged in and those closed source models that offer some capabilities. And we're going to see what they can do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the original Stable Diffusion. I've got Juggernaut, which is not Juggernaut XL, is the old Juggernaut, the OG. And we'll just take a look at what happens when we prompt for something simple using this model. An Egyptian cat wearing a pharaoh. What is the pharaoh's thing called? Let's let the want to say pharaoh's hat. And we'll keep the negative prompt relatively simple. Sketch, painting, watercolor, and we'll see what we get. But you get a real quick image on SD1. So we're going to switch to SDXL. We're going to use the same prompt and just look at the difference in quality. Looks like SDXL has a little bit of a better understanding. So, I mean, there's really no contest between the two in the sense of just like quality and aesthetics. And it's not that you can't get the same. You got to do a lot of work with Stable Diffusion to get it to do anything close to this. And let's just see what happens with Flux. I've got Flux Mania in here. With Flux, this is going to be the first model where you really don't want something as simple as this. I'll do it with this prompt format where it's like a very basic, almost like simplistic tag beat poetry type thing. But I anticipate that we'll get a much better image if we expand that. And so I'll generate it just to have it there. Close up photograph, a studio photograph of a white cat wearing a detailed ornamental pharaoh with gold plating, aquamarine gemstones, and reflective lighting. The scene captures the depth and nuance of Egyptian cat life. All right, we'll try that one. This is our first cat. Did pretty well. I mean, candidly, not too bad with that less sophisticated prompt. And the speed here on Flux is pretty fast, but you can kind of see the difference in the spectrum of speed with SD1 and Flux. Somebody asked the question, is Invoke adding a describe feature in the future? When importing images, I often query GPT-4 or Midjourney to get a sense of what it's seeing to help me steer my prompt writing. Yes, we are. That is on the docket. We have a Lava node locally, but we're looking at ways that we can incorporate some of the more advanced models, for example, Claude 4, but have those effectively serve as a vision model that gives you a prompt. In this comparison here, though, I think, looking at the two, the first one's not too bad, but I think you get a lot more creative intent articulated and understood when you use that longer prompt. We're going to let's do Imagen 4 first. I've found that it's pretty good, but we are going to do an invoke here and see what we get. Oh my goodness, look at that cute cat. A little bit more well fed than the old Flex cat. There's a little bit more meat on those bones, you know what I'm saying? a little fluffier. If I'm looking at the two, Flux tends to have this like very, and you can kind of tweak the settings here on the guidance to address this a little bit, but it can have this kind of like very saturated, crispy look. And you really do have to tune it with like guidance and stuff like that to get it closer. You don't have a lot of those settings with Imagen 4, so you're kind of just relying on it optimizing itself, but it does a pretty good job there. And we've got our cute cat. What a cute cat. Just to give ourselves a comparison, I'm going to do Imagen 3 as well. Imagen 3, pretty good. Certainly, definitely usable. Definitely usable. Imagen 4, I think, has a little bit of a better quality on certain domains, though. And then we're going to do our old friend ChatGPT-4o. We'll just skip the low. We'll do medium. And ChatGPT-4o high as well, and just compare both of those. What I expect, at least, Imagen 4 and ChatGPT to be pretty competitive. I think the big thing is, barring a need for you to use reference images and really deeply complicated prompts that require a lot of reasoning, I tend to find that Imagen 4 is just a little bit more efficient, both from a speed perspective and a price perspective, than ChatGPT high. There's also this like notable yellow tint that you'll find with Chat. It makes everything a little yellow. We've got our high quality cat and our medium quality cat. Again, I tend to find that the difference here is a little bit hard to discern sometimes for simple prompts. The way that I think about high and medium is you can get a little bit better quality, little bit, and high will better understand very complex instructions and like images and things like that. But if we go through and we look, SDXL, not too shabby. Is obviously has like some quirks. I think the areas that you'll notice are like lines and details like that. But overall, I mean, the image quality is much better than the old days. For the sake of just testing this and showing what I was talking about earlier, we'll do a quick comparison of this like cat. I'm going to convert it to a control layer. We don't have control layers for ChatGPT, so we're going to go to SDXL. And we'll do like a contour detection, just a simple like scribble. And what we're going to do is we're going to show like what this does when we use it for SDXL, what happens when we use it for Flux, and then what happens when we send it off to ChatGPT as a reference image. And that'll be an interesting one. So I want to actually like use this to control the generation, but I want to like restyle it somehow, right? So maybe I'll just say that this is a close-up painting, portrait, oil painting of a white cat. And we're going to say it's wearing detailed ornamental headdress made of neon light. City cat light, right? So we're kind of like just seeing how it interprets the prompt a little bit. I'm going to take this out and put photo in my negative prompt. And we're going to see like what control looks like across different models. So this one is going to be our SDXL. We'll do Flux after that. So Flux Mania. Use multi-guidance there. So this is our SDXL oil painting portrait. Not too shabby. I mean, given that we need to change some things, I mean, it's like definitely taking the prompt and doing stuff with it. We'll see what Flux does, and then we will take this and send it off to ChatGPT, and that'll be an interesting test. Because I guess the reason why I cite that is not control in a true sense is that you're not using a direct injection of control conditioning the way that you are in these open source models. You're passing it in as a reference image and praying that it understands what you want it to do with that specific thing. Oh, look at that. I don't get so much of the like made of neon lights. This kind of goes back to Flux being a little bit more, you really have to be like very explicit. You can't just like put in a word and let a lot of assumptions be made. You kind of need to tell it what you want. But I would say, like, the oil painting here definitely seems a little bit more like painterly in that sense. Do SDXL as a raster layer. We'll save this one as a raster layer, and then I'm going to close this out. And I am going to take this as a global reference image, because control layers are not going to work on ChatGPT. That to a raster layer first, and then I will do that. Put that on ChatGPT high. Okay, so now it's a reference image, right? And that's because ChatGPT doesn't have a concept of a control layer. It's just taking in reference images. We're just giving it a picture and saying, please do this. Use this image as the structure for a close-up portrait oil painting, structure and composition for a close-up portrait oil painting of a white cat wearing a detailed, and we're going to see what it comes up with. It did well though, right? It did pretty well in kind of like the general shape and structure, which I think speaks to the quality of the model. It's pretty good at doing that task. Let's look at these one by one. So if we do, I'll turn the transparency off. We can see direct control, exact areas where this, like, these circles were. To an extent, we had the weight at 0.75. We can see where the overlap is exactly. Similarly with Flux, we've got a pretty decent overlap here of the shape. We can see the circles, you can see the lines and the eye all match up faithfully. And this is really where like professional artists want this type of control. They really want the direct manipulation a lot of times, right? And it depends on how you're using it. Are you using this as a very faithful replication of what you have? Are you doing editing on the canvas where it needs to map up exactly to what was there? Or are you using this more as inspiration? Because I don't think it's necessarily, it didn't have a bad output. It's very clear that there's a lot that's not fully controlled, right? The shape of the eye, the placement of the nose here has moved up a little bit. The mouth is a little bit different. All good interpretation of what we wanted. The necklace has moved up a little bit. It's just, it's not exact. And that's the real difference here, is that you're not going to get an exact one-to-one replica. And that's true of ChatGPT broadly. And if you pass in an image and ask it to do something, it often changes the image in ways that you didn't want. Even if you're trying to do something like an in-painting, it's interpretive. It's an interpretive model. It's taking that model, interpreting what you want, and trying to reflect that back. So now that we've kind of gone through this process of analyzing, pictures of cats for each of these, let's actually take a step back and really focus on like image quality for different contexts and different kind of like aesthetics. Cool. So let's go back through and do some testing here. I've got a ultra realistic long prompt, a man in a trench coat with the look of a noir detective. Yeah. And we'll start with Flux Mania. So this entire prompt is going to be ultra realistic photo of a man. Ooh, nice. The big old stop sign in the background. See the detective forming. All is well. Okay, so we look at the face. That's a face that we would fix, if you know what I'm saying. It is not bad, but it is not perfect. Let's do Imagen 4 and see how it interprets this same prompt. But the guy's face looks just a lot more detailed. I mean, obviously he's like far away. So we go back to 100%. At 100%, that is pretty good detail. I mean, you're not going to be complaining too much about that. If you compare that with, the Flux Mania model, you're just getting kind of like a weird little face there that you'd probably need to come back in detail with a different model. Imagen 3, I'm looking at it. It looks okay. GPT-4o, really good image. It kind of, I would say in some sense, this is actually more reflective of the prompt. You know, the lighting is dominated by the flash. The immediate foreground is brightly illuminated. The photo has a candid, striking look with light grain, mild color shift, and a natural analog feel like a disposable camera photo. Like, this actually matches, and this is the medium setting, right? Let's see what happens when we go all the way to high. Quality up to 11. Let's go. But I think if you look at this versus, I mean, this is definitely, it's definitely good. It's a good photo. It's a little bit not like what I was envisioning, though, because the flash is not on the front. Seems like it's more coming from the top. This one certainly is not from the front. This is more like backlit. This one just seems most aligned with that prompt. You know what I'm saying? It's really good. Let's see what the high quality does here, because I think it will be pretty decent. Okay, there's a little bit more detail in the high, a tad. But I think in this one, I actually prefer the medium. Just kind of looks a little bit more. And I think that's luck. And I don't know that the quality difference is the one to blame there. So there are some things that are just like clearly better. Like the background has some depth to this concrete and some kind of like nice grainy detail. But I just particularly like that one. Imagen, not the winner on this one. Flux is obviously like, it's a contender in that it creates an image that's usable, but you do need to go in and touch it up and kind of tweak settings on Flux. Now, the benefit, obviously, of Flux, which I think is worth calling out, is that you can train it, which is fundamentally one of the biggest opportunities for getting what you want out of these models, is when you can train it to understand your language. And that is a dimension that Imagen and ChatGPT currently do not compete on at all. So we'll do concept art for an award-winning role-playing game. The style of the art is highly realistic, painterly digital artwork with an illustrative flair. Image is from let's see, art from an award-winning role-playing game. I'm going to say this is from a cinematic cutscene with a character in a dynamic pose. A magical archer. Somebody said with a tiger head, or somebody said tiger head, so I'll do it. With a tiger's head. The character is, this is a good test. Is holding a bow and arrow at the ready, looking off into the distance as if seeking their enemy. They are in a jungle, perched on a branch. All right, so now we're going to do Flux Mania. Flux is good. It's got some good bows and arrows. Okay. So we've got a decent bow and arrow. It's not perfect string. It's not how I would hold a bow and arrow. I've done archery before. It's not perfect here. But everything is interesting. Let's see what happens with Imagen 4. Okay, so it has the string pretty good. I don't know if it's exactly right, but it's pretty close. The style is obviously like its own version or interpretation of the concept art. It certainly is like not a cinematic cut scene. Or maybe it is. I don't know. There's a little bit of weirdness. But overall, I would say it did a pretty decent job. Like, came up with the character in it, and it works. Let's do our ChatGPT-4o medium. Somebody said, but it is a magical archer. It sure is. It sure is. And if we wanted to restyle it, we could. Certainly could. Somebody said that it looks like Imagen 4 is better than Flux. Imagen 4 is a great model. It's just not trainable, right? ChatGPT-4o medium, yellow tint, as always. Cool to an extent, a little bit warbly, and the bow and arrow's probably not the weakest, but it's not great in this hand. I mean, let's give it a fair shake. Let's do the high. The high is just so much more expensive than Imagen 4, and that's, Imagen 4 is a particularly well balanced. It's quick, it's good, it's fast, it gives a good base model. It's not bad compositionally speaking. It is not bad, but it's got some problems you'd want to edit out with SDXL. You'd want to take that and kind of like retexture and style it a little bit. But I think that's another thing is like with Flux, you can control the composition. So we could take this and bring it back into Flux. Either of these, any of these, we could take back. Struggled on that string, even at, even at full price. We're still seeing some struggles on this archer. He's also got 4 fingers. I'm going to put the win on this one. I'm going to put the win in Imagen's camp as far as just like overall alignment and fingers. I mean, maybe a tiger humanoid. Well, no, I'd say that, but he's got 5 fingers over here and 4 over here. So, and the same on this one. He lost on the fingers. And yes, and somebody did notice the string is going through his head, which, again, I've done archery before. You never want that. You do not want that. It's a bad feeling to have the arrow or the string go through your head. It's not good. Hopefully this was exciting for you all, or at least educational. Is a good little bit of a comparison experiment. And I think we kind of saw the strengths of some of the models. As has been mentioned, there are a lot of nuances and differences between these models. Every model has its strengths and weaknesses. They have their capabilities. They have different ways they can do things. And really knowing how to use them comes from practicing and trying them in your use case. So give it a shot, see how they work, and we'll see you next time.